Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the policy, draft policy that has been prepared regarding the use and fees associated with the storage in the new community center. How did that stuff? Okay.
You sent it to me.
Oh, all right, I did. Yes, I didn't know whether or not Pete and Bob had an opportunity to look at the things that I had sent out by email prior to the meeting, but if you didn't, you now...
I did, but just
now
you sent out by email yesterday, right? So
yeah.
I had it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. We have a draft of the... Yeah, we have a draft, current draft of the policy statement as it stands right now. I included some of the suggested additions to the policy statement, and also had asked Tom Olson to take a look at what exactly the demand is for the storage, and whether or not we can accommodate that demand. And Tom, I think maybe perhaps we should just put this thing in perspective by, looking at that first.
We have about 18 storage bins that will be located up there and available for rent. Last year we had somewhere around 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 rented. So we'd have about 6 left over if everyone renewed at the new rental rates. I've had one additional request for a storage container, and that was by the shape-ups group.
Now, one of the things that in your note that confused me a little bit is like somebody like the Kiwanis Club is requesting 3. Have you taken?
Yeah, they are the 3. They had 3 in the old building, and they want 3. Well, they'll want the same equivalent space in this building. We will make those spaces standardized by the storage system that we're going to put in there.
Well, if I were to look at this list right here, Tom, and count them up, you've got, maybe I'm missing something, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 organizations that paid storage unit rentals
right.
who are currently now.
And
those 8 are looking for 12 spaces.
3 of those 8 have multiple spaces rented. Used to have multiple spaces rented.
Right.
Kiwanis, Pioneer Craft Club, and the OC Power Squadron.
Okay. So that counts for a total of 12 spaces.
Correct.
You have 3 more who are using but not charged. And
Well, no, they're not using spaces. They were storage
7
containers that
spaces.
were.
Sorry? More?
Oh, you're including them all, okay.
Yeah, what I did was I counted the ones that I'm just counting spaces. I count 12 spaces on the top.
Sorry.
Then 3 more spaces is 15 spaces. Now you're going to say about the ones who are using space and still need
They
space.
weren't. There are 3 that had storage boxes. They weren't.
There weren't really spaces.
Yeah, it was.
But they would presumably still need or may need something.
But now all I have are things to rent. I don't have boxes that are sitting in closets.
Understand. So they may or may not. I mean, and that's.
Well, one of them has requested space. So Shape Ups is interested in renting any space.
Is.
Yes.
Okay, and the others may.
Right.
So I'm still up to 15, and then we have a wait list of 3 others, which sounds like 18.
Is that right?
17. You're
Yeah,
counting
I'm
shape-ups
not-
twice.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the wait list at all, so I'm not sure what.
Wait,
No, you're not, 18.
18.
18.
12 and 3 and 3 is 18.
18. Okay.
Going once?
We've just conclusively proved that the board can count. Okay.
Bob, I knew they
At least
needed
6
this.
of you, anyway. Fine.
So we have 18 spaces
18.
and potentially 18 users. Potentially 18 users. So that's,
Yeah, but if you understood what that group of 3, the Women's Club, the Pine Steppers, and the Shape-Ups, I mean, it was probably a box the size of one of these chairs. It wasn't I don't think they're looking for, you know, a 4x4.
probably not. Probably not. But I mean, but maybe. I mean, they're on the list. You know, that's all I'm saying is I'm just trying to say is that even with everybody that we know right now, we don't have an immediate problem. I mean, so that our next, as we start, or when the center opens, we can simply rent all of the spaces to all of the people who might conceivably want them.
This schedule here that I'm looking at, I want to understand a little bit. The size closet they had before, and there were varying sizes, 4x3s, 4x4s, 5x4s. They're all uniform now? Okay. And is it possible that the 3 who had just need for a box or something, that you could put 3 boxes in the size of one of the current?
They can all rent one. You know, some of them might not even need it. I'm not sure.
But if they need this much space, and you got a locker that's 4 times that size,
Yeah, split it up.
why not split it up and put
All
several
three
of
of
them in
you,
one?
all 3 of you can
Sure.
have
They
one.
could-
All 3 of you can have this one. You
And they
got to
could share
split
the
up
cost.
the rental fee.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you'll work that. I mean, you know, that'll work out. However
Yeah,
it works
exactly.
out.
I
You
mean,
know,
why
don't
give
really-
somebody a whole big locker if they only
When they're
need a
gonna
little bitty
little box.
space?
And you now, does this these 18? They were not supposed to include the space that we need ourselves, the association.
They do not.
They do not. So the association space is separate. I'm just trying to set,
Yeah,
this
no.
is what it is, okay? So there's no immediate problem. Now, I guess,
Well, the reason why I brought this up, David, I think Bob and Pete have not seen my email, was because during the course of the year that I was here, it was mentioned that there were other organizations that didn't have space, i.e. the Democratic Women Association, if I remember right, being one of them. The question I had was, you know, number one, how we were going to do that, how we were going to get the word out, number one, to all those people, organizations who may in fact want space. We don't know if this is a comprehensive list.
no, we don't. And by the way, I did send out your emails. I tried to, I think that
Yes,
was
you did.
included.
I think,
So
John, are
just
you
to bring-
referring to your email of August 6th?
Yeah.
I think so,
Regarding
Pete.
storage
Yeah.
policy?
Mhm.
And I
Yes,
think.
we did get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, okay, this is history, pure history.
Yeah.
Have we canvassed these people, and do we know if they want to continue to have space in our place?
I'd have to check with the rec office, but I think that most of them do want to
Do want.
return.
Now, we were charging last year how much per space?
It was a range. I think the high range was at somewhere around $65 or something.
A year.
A year.
So if we charge a different amount, this whole equation here
May well
could go.
change.
Now, do we know, when people stored things in these bins, do we know if the things were being stored there for use in the community center, which is what we should be doing, I think, if we're gonna do anything, or are they storing it because they didn't have garages and they felt like they needed to have a place to store things? And I use that from the example of the Veterans Memorial, where we rent a space behind the plaza over there because, you know, we need space. But if I knew I could get space here, I mean, why wouldn't I want to use Ocean Pines for my storage bin if I can get it for cheaper? You see what I mean? This is the issue as I see it. We need to have a policy, and then we need to offer it to people at a rate that's fair to them and to us.
Well, I think you get into sort of a separate but, you know, related subject. I mean, at the point in time when we determine what the current users, the use by the current users are, that is to say, the defined organizations that, Ocean Pines organizations. I mean, and there was excess space, then we could certainly take a look at outside, other groups that,
That's
that
the
might
issue.
want to pay
If you
for
think
it.
so, then we need to talk about that. I personally don't think that Ocean Pines Community Center should be offering storage to people who want to store things in our center unless the stuff they're going to be using is needed to operate in the center. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
One opinion, anyway.
I agree.
Well, it's more than your opinion. I think, who crafted this proposed policy statement that we're having up for discussion this morning?
No.
No, well,
Well, and with
okay, I get it,
input.
I'll admit it, I'm guilty party, but at the same time, there was no policy, so we wrote it up and we staffed it at the Community Center Task Force, which wasn't their mission,
Okay,
but
no.
we did it, and we voted on it, okay?
This is, the last sentence of the first paragraph policy says, the items permitted to be stored are limited to those items that are to be used by those organizations for the functions being held in the community. That seems very clear and, to me, very, very reasonable. I agree with Bill that you ought not to have a storage facility for people that are storing goods that they don't even need, that they're not intending to use for their activities within the community center.
Aren't we just here to vote on this?
Well, no, we're here to discuss it.
What it is, the policy.
Well, you know,
But we
discussion
can
comes
make a
right
motion.
after a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Or we can sit here and just
Yeah.
shoot, we ought to get donuts and some lunch. We're going to sit here all day.
But it
This
is a
is a pretty
special meeting
simple
called for
policy.
this purpose only?
Yeah, let's go
Well,
ahead
we
and
just
have
talked about the
a motion.
process while
I mean,
we're here.
Yeah, we have the motion, or the,
No, we don't.
We don't
I'm
have a
sorry, we
motion.
don't have a motion. We do have the draft of the policy. And we had a request for a discussion of the policy. If you want to proceed that, let's,
On
do I have a
rules,
motion?
I have a motion that we approve the policy as written on this statement dated August 5th.
question, can I second that and then in discussion make a change?
Of course.
Yeah.
Second?
Because I want to do the same thing.
Now we discuss it, right?
Now we discuss it, yeah.
Okay, may I?
Sure.
I'd like to change one word from shall to may. The association may provide storage space.
No problem with that.
Association shall.
I mean, shall's a tough
Did I ask you
word.
your purpose for that?
Yeah, okay. Pines Point Marina wants a space, somebody else wants a space, everybody wants a space for $300, and all of a sudden it becomes a real problem. We may or may not supply space.
Oh, well,
I agree with that. It provides flexibility, I think,
Yeah,
to the
to a
organization.
board down the road. I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
seeing
no.
this happen in the
Or a
next
need down the road.
3
Mark.
days.
I mean, there may be a need when.
All right, the motion is to amend this motion by changing shall to may.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an amendment.
Is that
Okay.
an amendment
Is
or a
there
motion?
Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Dave? More discussion on that amendment?
Well, I think, in the interest of doing this expeditiously, we should determine whether or not there are any other changes.
There probably
and try and
are.
do
I
it.
mean, I have one.
I
Let's
mean,
get this one out of the way.
Unless you want to get this one out of the
Let's
way,
get it
I'll
out of the
call
way.
the question for this.
You're gonna have 3 pages of minutes amending one motion for all these different changes. Can we just
Why don't we just
consolidate
table
them
that
all
for the
and-
moment? And
Table
then,
it.
then if we have 3 or 4 that everybody kind of agrees on.
Why
we
don't
can
I
do them
just
all.
amended motion
remove
incorporates them
mine
all.
and you go right ahead and throw mine in with yours.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Withdraw.
May I? I'm questioning the red lined item there, still can show a clear need remaining space to be allocated to those on a waiting list and whose selection is decided through a lottery. That's what I want to question, a lottery. At the moment, and I didn't understand all this coming into today, that apparently we have enough space at the moment for those organizations that have previously used it, right? Those who have indicated it. But why the lottery? And it's only restricted in this language here to those organizations who would not be allocated the initial number of storage lockers because they've used it in the past. But a lottery, I'm just thinking you have one organization that may come in and use it 2 times a year, another organization who is much more significant, which is much more significant to the community, much more impact in what it is they do, versus another organization may have 10 members or something, and yet through the lottery, this organization with clearly a lesser need gets, by virtue of being successful in the lottery, the space, and the well-deserving, well-meaning, very large organization that needs it gets shut out because they weren't lucky enough to win the lottery.
Will you volunteer to be the one that cuts that baby in half?
Yeah.
Is that the reason we do that? Because it's hard?
Yes.
No.
I would
The
make
reason
them all
why-
by
Call
lottery.
it John.
If I may, the reason why, again, I go back over the 1 year I've been here, they come up saying, how do these original folks ever get the spaces they got, and other organizations did not get the spaces? So I said, as we got this new amendment in place, as we got this new policy, I said we have to be fair to all. We set out the criteria as to what, in the second paragraph, they set out the criteria as to who qualified for a space. So if you had 15, 20, or 30 organizations that all met the criteria, how are you going to be the decision maker, fair and reasonable? The only way I felt that was possible was you put them in and it's a lottery. If Kiwanis gets it, fine. If they don't, so be it. I mean, it's drawing a lottery. The other thing was, we said, well, sometimes they get this and they have it for in perpetuity, forever and ever, indefinite.
Like our boat slips.
Like the boat slip. So I said, why don't we put a 5-year term limit on it? And then you say at the end of 5 years, you come back up, and the only fair way of doing it is you have a wait list. And if on the wait list, you can do that any number of ways. You can put the first one on the wait list, gets the choice. If they back out, then you go to number 2, or you can do a lottery on it. In any case, Pete, we have to be fair to the organizations. We defined what an organization was. I don't think anybody had any challenges with what that organization was. The only challenge we had was, how do we make sure we are fair to these organizations so they all get a chance to have a space?
There's an old concept called, I don't mean to be smart here, but first come, first served. At the moment, we do not have a wait list.
We don't know that.
Okay.
We assume that.
Until we say, put your check on the table and sign the
Right.
lease here, we're not gonna know what we have.
And
First of all, John, I have no objection at all to a time limit. I think that's fair, all right? So I'm just questioning the lottery concept as a concept. How would you administer, obviously you've thought this through, and I haven't had that opportunity, but how would you administer the lottery concept, let's say from the get-go? Let's say you have 3 organizations. Do you have a lottery just for those 3?
No, if there's not a requirement to hold a lottery, I don't have a problem just assigning the spaces. However, if there is too many organizations and not enough spaces, who's going to play the Pontius Pilate? Who's going to play King Solomon? Who's going to say this organization?
First come, first served, you don't have that problem.
Well, but we don't know that, because we have not advertised this saying we have now spaces available.
So, okay, I understand.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to be fair.
Yeah, it's a valid point. But again, I'll ask the question. Are you intending the lottery as you envision it to be only at the outset? In other words, let's assume that 21 organizations come in and want 18 of these. Well, we've only got 3 to go, and you got 6 who won. So you have a lottery amongst the 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 win the lottery, they get it.
Why wouldn't we include them all? Just because you had one before means you automatically get one now?
That's what he's proposing.
I'm proposing that that's not the way it should be.
No, I agree with you.
If
we're going to have a lottery, it ought to be all chips in.
Well, that's a different concept.
All
because
cards on the table.
That's
let's
different
go.
than what's here. That's not what I propose.
What you just said, Marty, is
Definitely
different than what has
different
been
than what is
proposed
here.
and what's before us.
Yeah,
Wait
but
a
it's
minute,
not
wait a
what's in my August 6th, which
Okay,
came out
right,
after.
okay.
Okay, my August 6th one says that find out who wants spaces, and we make a determination. If there's only 18, okay, and we have 18 boxes, there's not a need for a lottery. However, if there's 19 or 20 organizations, then there is a need to be fair to all 20 organizations so they get their chance.
Regardless of size or impact on the
Well,
community of the
yes.
organization. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, just want to clarify.
Now, Pete, you brought up a very good point earlier. As Tom mentioned, some of these only have boxes. So if they want to group together and say, look, I am the Women's Club Pine Snapper
Right.
Shape-Up group that only wants to share one, they would go in as one, okay? And they would split the
okay.
cost. So,
So there are different ways that this thing can be configured, but let me point out,
and also,
right now,
if I also may finish, Bill brought up a point about organizations who have spaces off campus. So the question would become, I'm assuming that would stand, and so organizations like the veterans would not get the memorial would not get a space. So I'm assuming again that we're only sticking to
the definition.
the definition.
The definition is in here.
For the fun of this, just let me throw it on the table because I think it bears mentioning. Our largest charitable contribution last year, I believe, came from the Berlin Optimist Club. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
How much space did they use? Yeah, well, we don't want to give them any space. They
Well-
don't use our facilities for free, so we don't want to give them any space.
Well,
This policy doesn't make any sense when you think about it that way.
well, yeah, but you're bringing, in fact, we've always defined the use of space, as far as I know, as far back as I go. As
The
using
purpose
this
of it is people
definition-
using the community hall. I agree. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
that point, that we're shutting the door on our largest contributor.
Have they requested in the past?
No, they
No,
haven't.
they haven't.
Well, then why
It's
are we
a
shutting the
non-issue.
door?
Well, because if they decide now they want it, they're behind these other people in the line.
Let me go
Because of
back.
importance or because of use.
If
They
we
don't
can get
use it.
this back to this, and the question that's called, we have one recommended change to it. When you get down to priority of assignment, there are perhaps two issues. Okay, one is, okay, that this, as we have it right now, what we're saying, that those organizations that have used it before will have preference, okay, and will be first online to use it again. That's what this says, I believe.
That's
Okay.
what it says.
And it
But that's not what was
says,
spoken
it
to a moment
says,
ago.
it says that also, that should there be remaining spaces and organizations who have not used it before, okay, those remaining spaces by implication can either be assigned, and if there are not insufficient remaining spaces, that those organizations who have not had it before would have access to those spaces via a lottery.
I
Okay,
think
that's what it
yeah.
says in here right now, okay? No doubt about it. Now, John has brought up a point in his emails already, I believe, that we should do two things. One is that we should limit the remaining spaces to 5 years, okay, or the access to
Right.
spaces, at which point in time, those organizations who have had it before's name would be thrown into the hopper, presumably with those that are waiting. It gets a little more complicated than I can think about, and that there would be some form of a lottery. You've suggested, I believe, or at least by implication, that after let's suppose, we fill in 18 spaces. Next year, there's 3 more organizations that want it. One of the spaces becomes available. Those 3 organizations have a lottery. Marty has said that, nah, if you're going to do that, all 17 plus 3, 20 organizations go back into the hopper, and we have this lottery every, how often? 5 years, 1 year, whatever. I mean, Marty was basically saying, hey,
Well,
if
he's
we have a
saying-
lottery for
he
one,
may be saying-
we'd have a lottery for all. I think
Throw it
I got
open
that
at
right.
the outset to everybody in a lottery.
Yeah.
I think Marty was
And-
agreeing with what I said. In the beginning, you put everybody in the hopper.
I agree with that.
And then you have a 5-year, or you have some type of waiting period,
Right.
or they sign up for so many years.
At the end
Okay,
of
so-
5 years, they may find they don't want it anymore. I mean, when we cleaned that building out, I can't tell you. I bet we had a dumpster load of Heinz player stuff.
Yeah, there is.
The 5 years makes
We
sense.
do have right now a statement which was added that we show that these organizations have a clear need. In other words, the purpose of that was to avoid a case where the organization says, hey, it's $300 for God's sake, we could use it someday, let's just pay $300 so we have it. And
Reserve
it
it.
stays empty, or there's junk in it, or there's no real reason. I mean, I'm perfectly content to let the general manager and staff sort that out and say, hey, look, there's other people waiting, and you either use it or lose it. So that's the way it stands right now. Now, do we have any kind of a motion to change this priority of assignment?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure,
before I
I'll
make a
do
motion?
all you want.
Number one, do we know we have everybody who may be interested, every organization? If
No.
not,
No.
can we, before we,
We don't.
Well, let me ask, before everybody answers who doesn't know the answer.
When does that ever
Let's let the
stop?
person who's supposed to know the answer answer.
Everyone on this list has either rented before or expressed an interest. No one else there's no one on this list that's expressed an interest that didn't.
let me rephrase that then. Have we gone out to the organizations and asked them if they would be interested?
No, and frankly, I'm not sure that I want to create this storage unit business over at the community center. It's kind of like a public service we're doing for our clubs.
Well, wait a second. How many organizations do we have in Ocean Heights? I mean, bona fide,
64.
by the definition. So there's
how many use our facility?
Bill, I'm sorry, you have a question.
Well, the reason why we haven't got an answer is because this board hasn't had a policy. How can we go out and ask the people if they want to come back in until we say, here's our policy, and by the way, it's gonna cost you X number of dollars? How can we possibly know?
All I can say is this, this place has been going for 40 years and the storage space over there has been going without much of a problem. I don't think we should overcomplicate this thing.
I don't either,
Establish a policy and let my Parks and Recreation staff figure out how to distribute it. Everything's fine.
Okay, we have one motion to amend, okay? Do we have a second motion to amend the current policy?
Yes.
The current policy being what's in front of us here?
That's what's in front of you.
The draft.
Draft.
We don't have a current policy.
We don't have a current policy, it's draft.
We have a motion on the current policy.
Well, we have a motion to adopt a policy,
That's
Yes.
right, this policy, this policy.
this policy.
And I'd ask that any changes
So
be
you
included in
can
that
discuss it
motion,
unless
so
you
that
draft it
I
and
know.
can talk about it.
Motions.
Then go ahead, Pete.
I have one, are we now talking about a lottery for those spaces that remain unallocated after giving priority to those organizations who have used it in the past?
That is what this
That's what
policy
this
says.
says.
Fine.
But we can change that.
No, I like that.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna make an amendment. I'm gonna make-
I'm sorry, one last one for John. Do you envision an annual lottery?
No,
How often would the lottery be held?
there would be an initial lottery for all organizations.
Assuming there's more demand than we have space.
But
Otherwise,
I-
there's no
even
lottery.
then, I would put it in, because the question in the past came up, well, how did people get the spaces? This policy would define, as we're starting over, we get brand new bin, different standard sizes now, whereas before they were all different sizes, etc.
Well, there are only a couple differences.
Well, but I mean, they were all different sizes, so there's a brand new world.
Within a 2-foot range.
Brand new time to start over and be clean. And so, my point is that everybody go in the lottery, fine, if you get 18 of them, everybody gets a space, everybody's happy, and they go home clean. And the only other thing, and then I would recommend it would be for a period of 5 years, or sooner if they dropped out. If it's sooner, and there's a waiting list, then I would say we draw based on a lottery.
One,
If there are 22 organizations that come forward from day one, vying for 18 positions, this policy would say what?
This policy would
Lottery
say-
for all 21,
Yes,
regardless of whether or not you've had space in the past?
yes,
That's the question.
that's my amendment.
well, it's,
My amendment would be that initial spaces in the new community hall be assigned based upon a lottery for a period not to exceed 5 years.
So, let's be clear about this. This means that all organizations who have previously used storage space are all on equal footing with any other organization, even one that was formed last week, who meets the criteria, and everybody gets the same opportunity going forward, fresh start, regardless of whether or not you've had this. That's what you're saying?
Yes, because it doesn't say in qualifying community organizations, Pete, that they had to have the space before. This opens it up to everybody. Somebody comes back in and says, hey, look, I met the criteria, you didn't give me a chance to get the space.
So all equal coming in?
All equal coming in.
No preference given to prior usage, prior service, history,
Mhm.
zero. I don't think that's right.
Okay.
Well,
Bill,
I think it's right, I just don't agree with it. I mean, there's nothing right here, we're all talking about ideas, that's why this stuff's put on paper, just to have an idea type thing. And why I think your idea of coming here and discussing it is good. This is not a big deal, but it's gotta be resolved and we can move on. I think that even though I think what you're saying is certainly not wrong, I think that those people who have used it in the past ought to have some first come, first serve right under the new policy to continue to use it if they qualify both with the stuff they put in there and in the size of their organization. That's what I think.
That's what I think too.
I kind of agree with it because I believe that they have an expectation. I mean,
They do.
and
They
We
got
told them when
proven
they
record
moved out of that building that
that we're
building
gonna
would be
give
for a
it back to
temporary period of
them,
time.
and it's gonna be better.
And I don't think any organization, if we talk to them, if they see what we're doing here, can argue the fact that they shouldn't be storing stuff in there that they could more properly store in some outside storage stuff. You know, we're not an organization that provides, we're not in the storage business, we're in the
Free
providing
meter
service.
space business.
Yes. Anyway, so, you know,
Now, with respect to the 5 years, I mean, it sounds reasonable, but, you know, the question is, as organizations perhaps come and go, I mean, it could be a couple of years that or it could be next year that we have new space, and then we still have and I think what this says is if we do, and there's 3 organizations vying for one space, you know, they'll choose between them. I also think
Don't
it
you have to do it
showed.
one way or the other?
One way or the other.
Yeah.
Do a waiting list, first come,
I
first
say
served.
that,
Yeah.
that what we're
Well,
telling people who, we're, if we agree to the first come, first served thing,
Yes, you're getting to a good point.
It's the same thing, it's just in black and white. I think you can put up your print, you can put up your print.
okay, I say if we agree to the first come, first served principle, if they still qualify, I say then, but in 5 years, we're gonna kick you out if there's more people waiting. I think that's an incompatible position, in my opinion.
Well, let me ask you this, Bill.
If they still qualify, let them stay.
Do you think that this last
Raise the
sentence?
cost of the rents to filter on.
I mean, why shouldn't the waiting list be first come, first served?
I think it should.
You gotta do one way or the other, lottery or first come, first served.
Exactly.
Well, then we gotta understand that
But-
what we're doing is, if you have a space, you have it forever and a day. Because Kiwanis Club has had it for how long?
Forever and a day.
Forever and a day.
Yeah.
How much turnover has there been in the spaces?
I mean, it's not, again, there was maybe 10 or 12 spaces before. It wasn't a huge,
Turnover. So
And you-
basically, you're gonna.
John, keep in mind that last year's net revenue on our rental
I
space was under
understand.
$400.
I was only trying to be fair to all the organizations as we started new. I just do not
I
believe this
don't
policy
disagree.
is fair. I believe this favors those who have it in the past. Unless we made a promise to the other organizations that were in there before, saying, okay, when you moved out, when we get our new spaces, you can move back in, the space is yours. But then again, you know, we're raising the rent on them too. So.
They may not want to come
But
back.
John, those organizations have
bet
not
you
yet
want
come
us to
forward
make
and said, I
space.
want space.
They have not come back in and said, no, they do not. So there was
They're
so many
waiting,
that
they're
came
waiting
back.
to see what we're gonna do.
They're waiting to see what's gonna, okay.
once you establish that fee and we advertise the deadline, you gotta sign up by this date or the thing goes vacant, you'll find out how many
We'll find out.
Just call the vote.
What about my change?
So there's no mention of 5 years in this policy, right?
Well, okay, let me, if Bill, see if you would agree. On this last sentence, those on a waiting list shall be allocated to those on a waiting list, based on, with those first on the waiting list. I'm trying to forget the words. It's,
Okay.
they're-
By, on the waiting list and the order upon which they apply.
yes.
So do we know this wait list is in the order in which they applied?
Well, that's the problem. See, if we don't put out an announcement saying that this is gonna happen and say you gotta apply by a certain date, we got people, we don't even know what the status is. Have they already applied? Or they just said, I've applied pending, know what you're gonna charge me? I don't know. We don't know.
I think that anyone who's had one already has had to move their stuff out and found alternate storage for it. They're waiting to come back. All right, so I don't believe that there's anybody on that list that's saying we're not coming
So
back.
so your modification, I mean,
Notification.
yeah. Oh, I guess I got you to do it.
Yeah, that's fine.
The order in which they apply.
I can approve almost anything here.
You can make.
Do we all have the same language? I
Let's
have- The language I have here says assignment of storage space shall be first for those qualifying organizations that have been assigned space in the past and still can show a clear need. Remaining spaces shall be allocated to those on a waiting list and whose selection is decided through a lottery. That sounds to me like what John is advocating.
No, it's not what I'm advocating.
Okay.
It's not what
This is what I think
He
we
wants-
ought to
he
do.
wants a
I think-
lottery for the
I think
whole
we ought to
thing.
do it as proposed here in this motion. And if you're seeking a motion to
Are
adopt this
you-
policy.
Are you
I'll
going
do
to
it.
keep the lottery, or do you wish to make the motion in the order in which they apply?
You could just put a period at waiting list.
Okay.
A waiting list is pretty self-explanatory to anybody
It is to
outside.
me.
of-
You know
First
what?
come, first served.
You're right.
Well, I wouldn't even have to put that, it's a waiting list.
It's a waiting list, and
If they don't understand what a waiting list is, then-
there's going to be somebody that you're right.
And most of their storage stuff's gonna be jackets and tied behind their
I
backs.
think Marty's right. So if we have a motion, can we have a motion then to put a period after a waiting list?
I thought we haven't got the user fee yet. We gotta get
Please,
there.
no more motions.
Finish.
To modify
We're gonna make
the one
all the
on top,
changes.
so we're not doing
Oh, okay,
65 motions.
certainly, okay, but I'm trying to say, ask whether we have the second motion, coupled to Marty's, which puts a period at the end
It'll all
of
be one
waiting.
motion to make all these
It'll
changes.
be all
That's
one
right.
amendment.
Right, so
You'll
we're
do
it.
gonna
You'll
put
take a
a
shot at it
period
right
after
now?
list.
Period after
All
list,
right.
okay, we have a motion, I'll
Here we go,
second
you
it.
ready?
Well, we
My
did-
motion is
Yeah,
to change Bill's motion to read, the association may provide in sentence one,
Okay,
We got
good,
that.
Good.
and in priority of assignment to eliminate, add a period after list and eliminate, and whose selection is decided through a lottery.
okay,
Fair enough.
That's the two
fair
amendments so
enough.
far.
That's
Is
what
there a
we've got.
second to that?
No,
No, we'll get that on.
Oh, I thought that was it.
No,
No,
No.
there may be
No?
more.
Okay, let's,
Oh,
are there any more?
God.
We're gonna break
User
the run
fees.
soon.
What about user fees?
Well, we threw in,
$300.
we've got $300 from what you mentioned a month or so ago, and we put that in there, and we needed, is everybody happy with that?
Well, you know, I'd make it 500, but 300's fine.
I'm happy with,
The staff is recommending 300.
That's recommended 300.
Okay.
Do we debate the
Are there
cost of
any other
hamburgers
questions?
after this?
Well, there's a point down here about, this is a key to somebody, about any modification by the community organizations to the existing storage bin must be in writing. Apparently, this came from Rex and Parks, and people are down there doing their personal modifications down there. We want to make it a policy, they have to ask to do that, we
Absolutely.
have to approve it.
yeah?
Yep.
That's what make
Then you don't
that
end up
clear.
with fire hazards.
Yep.
All right, so,
All right, if there's no further discussion, can I have a second to both motions?
Second.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the policy as modified, or as amended? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh.
One.
One.
5 to 1.
Here's your
And the
first
policy
vote, you already
carries.
screwed up.
John McLaughlin.
Which one?
this, if somebody may want to say something.
Okay. Let's say kind of after the fact, but I think we had a public discussion of that, but I will open it up to any comments. Yes.
Hi, I'm Joanne Massey. I'm here for Quilters by the Sea, and we've had the storage for a long time. Can you give us some idea? You say 4 by 4. Is it? Can we put shelving in there, freestanding shelving, or is it all boxes? Can you give us an idea?
There will be shelving installed. I think it's 2 foot intervals.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? No. Okay, let me close this portion of the meeting.
Portion?
Yeah, well, I sent that to you. Marty. Come on, you had the email. Basically, 2 other items that were discussed or suggested for discussion, and in sort of for the benefit of our 2 new board members who have varying amounts of catching up to do. One was let me get into, I think, the easier one first, the 10-year plan. Bill, do you want to
Yes.
just talk about that?
Thank you.
I got one extra.
Okay.
Ted gave a really good presentation, as we all know, at the annual meeting, okay? And what I want to do is provide the board more detail, briefly, as to what we're doing, because there's a significant amount of things being done and deadlines being set, detail that's just going to require a few board meetings at a certain time to approve these things, because we got to decide how they're going to fit in the budget. The page 1 there, lower left-hand corner, page 1, talks about what we're doing for the long range, what we're actually in design and pricing. And this is where most of the work, the second line there going down, we're in design of the bridges, the swimming racket club, and the beach club. So we're looking at the country club, even though we gotta really do a lot of work there to decide what we want there. And we're looking at the yacht club, okay?
I must be on
And
the wrong page.
page 1,
Okay.
okay? And then program development, how does this get prioritized and financed, okay? And anyway, I wanna move to page 2 right away, Swim and Racket Club. The first priority as we see it, because it's gotta be done. On the left-hand side here, we've done a research, by how that's gonna be done, how we're gonna replace that deck. But if you go over here to this part right here, right there, you'll see that in the middle of September, we're planning to tear those decks down. I think everybody has to understand that. That's a dangerous situation down there, and we're gonna tear it down, right? That decision has been made by management. We've informed the board, but the board hasn't said go till you have the.
Yeah, probably dangerous situation might be a little bit of a stretch. We've identified structural problems with it, and we need to correct them. Okay, I don't think it's about to fall down, but we're gonna fix it before
Well,
it does.
we're concerned about
get to the
overloading
point.
right
Yeah,
now on the swim meet.
I mean, I saw yellow tape up there keeping people off the corners of the place.
That's right.
That to me is a dangerous situation.
Well,
Yeah,
that
it's
semantics here.
not
What we're saying is,
dangerous.
we're not in dire straits, but we're taking steps to make sure that it's not dangerous. But
Gotta be fixed.
But management,
It's gotta be
and
fixed.
management in the 10-year task force has decided it's gotta be fixed. Tom is smart enough to know he's gotta move forward. He's told Kerry to go ahead and take it down after consultation. And the board has not officially put up their hand and said, go. But I think by not saying anything, knowing this, that's why I'm bringing this up, you've gotta go, right?
Do we have to, as a board, do that? And if we
I
do, why
don't
does it
think we
schedule
do.
for a meeting?
Well, what you're doing.
I don't think we have to.
I don't either, but
But because of
But,
some,
but Bill's point is, you all ought to be aware of what's happening, and it's a
I'm
good
I'm
point.
making sure.
everybody,
And have an
every
opportunity
member
to raise
should be aware.
objections.
And
If
have
there are
opportunity to
any,
say,
right?
wait a minute, or ask
What
questions.
you're doing is you're taking something that was budgeted for the 2012.
And we're moving it ahead.
timeframe.
And we have not,
Moving it ahead into the current or the next,
which,
this year, actually.
exactly.
And so it's like a,
And really, if you look at,
200,000 plus.
if you look at the budgeting process, for him to shift funds more than 5% of any department.
It needs
It
approval.
needs approval.
It needs approval.
So
And I-
because we haven't, that's why, I mean, and we're not giving that approval by board vote, we're giving you approval by default.
Well, no, well, actually, here's what will
Yeah.
really happen. I'll tear it down, and there's a nominal cost to that.
Okay.
I'll bring you back bids and say, here's what I have
Oh,
to
yeah.
do to build it back up.
All right.
At that point,
I
you're
just wanted to
actually-
make sure we all are clear on what Tom's doing and giving us
Well-
a blessing to proceed.
I think some of these issues, I don't think I mean, we may be talking about formalities, but I think the formalities ought to be
Right.
followed. And so we get to the September board meeting, in which some of this will have already proceeded and we'll understand.
Well, I want to show you on this list, now, you didn't get the things printed out in red, but I have, in the master red, these are all things we're going to do, like in 1 September, we're going to come up with a scope of work. That's not too long from now, guys. Yes, Mark?
I'm in complete agreement with this.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I want everybody to understand that if we move this 200 from 2012 up to 2009, we better be prepared to move something because in
I'm going to
2009.
get to that. I'm going to get to
Well,
that. okay?
and that's why the entire picture has to be presented.
That's
to the
why,
board,
that's why I'm
and the
going
board
through in
should all
advance
go-
what we're talking about, so
Yes.
you'll understand. Okay, so anyway, so 1 September, scope of work, we're refining a list of bidders of those people who can in fact do deck work and those kind of things we're talking about. And we're having, you can see, pre-bid meetings, 23 September, bids due 14 October, task force review, blah, blah, blah. There's a series of things going on one project that's going to require a lot of attention and deadlines and things, and coming back to brief the board, okay?
I have a question. If you demolish the existing deck, can you in fact use that pool?
No.
So then,
It's after the season.
I understand it's after the season. So no matter what, once you take that deck down, you're locked in to a bid, regardless of
Right,
price.
that's
Oh, yeah.
exactly, you
You
got
gotta put it back up. if
You're
gonna
locked
win.
into a
Right?
bidder
Then
for
there's
closing.
another option, and I don't know if it's been looked at, is until we get the bids in, can you postpone this, or is there another temporary fix you can do to make sure that we have the money to do this?
John, you
We
don't
have
want to
the
open
money.
it next year. First of all, I think we have to make repairs to the pool itself. The skimmer system needs to come up to
Codes.
current codes. So I've got to do work over there to begin with, or the pool
Okay.
doesn't.
John, that's a very good point, though, and the answer is that if we're going to follow a schedule to get it done by May, we have got to press on. We can't keep putting off.
I
action
understand
items.
that. All I was saying is that once you tear it down, you cannot use the pool.
Right.
Right.
As a result, if these bids come in, let's say higher than what we think they should be, we are locked in.
Or,
Really close
well,
the pool.
almost,
That's why you're
or
modifying
close
it.
the pool.
Or close the
close the
pool,
pool.
which
Or
I think is
modify it,
unacceptable.
make the deck smaller.
Yeah.
I'm
But
pretty
anyway,
sure you
what-
gotta close the pool if you don't do it.
There you go.
And
That's a good point. Okay, so what it is yes, we're locking ourselves in to this as a first priority, and if nothing else can be done, this has got to be done. That's what we're really saying here.
That's what I'm saying. Then, as long as we all understand that, then we may have to move money around in the budget to do so. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, let me just, may I comment here, short response to something, John? In terms of the cost, John, the beauty of what was approved by the board last year, although it approved a specific one-year budget, it also embraced a 5-year plan. And that 5-year plan anticipated significant expenditures over that 5-year period, identified a way to raise the monies over a 5-year period to pay for those significant expenditures. We acknowledged from the outset during that budget process that some of those numbers were going to change. For example, bridges. We had a number in there for the bridges. We knew that that was an initial estimate. We also then knew that that number was probably going to change. We also knew that other numbers were going to change. But the whole concept of looking at it as a 5-year period of time allowed the flexibility to, if in 1 year, this one, so we have it embraced in the 5-year plan. The priorities are going to change. We're going to do some things earlier than originally anticipated, some things later, but still keeping within the concept of the 5-year plan,
I am
total
aware
budget
of
expenditures.
Pete, I am aware of that. That's not the issue. The issue was when you knock this sucker down,
You're right.
you're
Right.
locked in
Absolutely.
to this program,
Absolutely.
regardless of the cost, or you
exactly.
close the pan.
Exactly.
I agree.
Okay?
Now-
And whether you have the money or not is irrelevant, because you gotta have
You
the
gotta
money.
do it.
Right.
Okay.
gotta do it.
Now, something else. If you look on the right-hand side here, the bulkhead replacement. Ted mentioned this, but I want to make sure everybody understands that in this year's budget, the money and the plan is to replace so many linear feet of bulkhead, and that is in the plan. So this will be done in conjunction with, not as a part of. Okay?
If we never did anything to the pool, we would have done that anyway.
Right. In addition to that, here's something that's not even on here because it doesn't belong on here. Kerry is going to get a price for resurfacing the marina wood on the top. Just because he's got people looking at other stuff, he's going to see what it's going to cost us to do that as a side issue. And may present it to the board to do this in conjunction with, if it makes sense.
That's the marina at the Swim and Racket Club.
Yes. But don't anybody get excited about that. We're not planning to do that. We're getting data to see what it's going to cost us so we can make a decision to go or not go, okay?
I thought we saved the trees that we knocked down from the fire department to put use on that marina.
All right, the next sheet.
May I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I'm clear on this. We've already budgeted in the 5-year plan, from what you're saying, Pete, to cover this cost, is what we're guessing at this point. I just wanna-
Guessing is the operative word. We don't
Yes.
have firm estimates.
We have, within the 5-year period, embraced the expenditure of X number of dollars.
Okay.
We're now further refining how those projects will fit within that budget, those budgeted amounts. We
Okay.
didn't know about this particular need, so this particular need was not then budgeted, but the entire pot of money was.
Okay, so this one boils down to a safety issue.
Yes,
With the pool will be closed next May if something isn't done to it, correct?
Exactly.
correct.
So that's why this is
So it has
moved
become a
up.
higher priority than originally envisioned because of the change.
It wasn't even on the list.
It was the
Okay.
last thing
Not-
on the list of
You're
events.
absolutely
6 years out, I think.
The only
Not per se, but if you look at your budget,
Yeah.
in 2012, you will see the number $225,000, and no more specification than that, for the Swim and Racket Club. So there was money.
We knew that it would take
We
some.
knew something was going to have to be done
Then I
on that.
guess you-
Okay, and for the benefit of the new members of the board,
Yes.
In the past, Art and Public Works and stuff have put their heads together and said, these are the kind of things we think we need to do in the next 5 years or so. And they've done a pretty damn good
Yeah,
job
they've
of
been
that.
pretty close.
They've been pretty close, but it's based upon their estimates. The 10-year task force, Tom's task force, is going out and now gathering data to prove or disprove and validate those needs, and that's that's how this got found out.
Understood.
The task force, Ted, as a matter of fact, said, let's
Yeah.
check this out.
And I think that's great. By the way, I think it's the best I've ever seen it run from that standpoint, being here as long as I have. However, I just want to make sure we're about to take a pull down that we don't know what the end cost is going to be until you get into it. You guys as builders know when you tear something down, you never know until you open the lid what it's going to turn into. Just want to make sure. The primary reason this is being done is it will be closed next May unless something's done. Period.
The
End of
existing
story.
pilings are rotten.
Okay.
May I, real quick, just try to make it, you've heard the old adage, you know, it's hard to remember that we were here to clean out the sewer when we're up to our, you know what, and alligators. This started as follows. We voted to put a canopy on the front of the yacht. Somebody yell at me if I'm wrong, and then we go over and go, wait a minute,
you're wrong.
we can't put a
And
canopy
we
on front of the
said,
yacht
how
because
hard can that
the
be?
pilings may not be good. Well, we got Sue to look at the pilings, and sure enough, the pilings weren't good.
And oh, by the way.
Well, while you're here, why not go over and take a look at the Swimming Racket Club? Oh my God. End of story.
All right, here's something else. The 10-year task force has taken a position to recommend to the board. We don't want to do any 5-10-year short fixes. If there's a problem, we want to get it solved, we want to do it right, we want to do it good, and we want it to last 40, 50 years. That's a basic principle that we're acting on, because we have done Band-Aid
We're paying
fixes
the
in the
consequences
past.
down
None of us
there.
have.
We don't want our facilities to end up like that
Right.
building over there was a year ago.
Agreed,
I
guys.
don't think anybody has a problem with number 2. I think it's clearly a
Okay.
safety issue.
Yeah, that's all. I just want to make sure.
And number 3, let's go to number 3, because here we can have some disagreements or misunderstandings of what we're doing, okay? In number 3, it's the beach club. There's 2 major projects that are under consideration. On the left is the beach club bathhouse. And the 10-year task force recommends that awful looking bathhouse underneath the current building needs to be spruced up, and they determined that it really, you can't make chicken salad out of you know what, okay? So the 10-year task force has presented for consideration a new bathhouse, and Ted showed you where it was, okay? We went out yesterday. We worked on a scope of work, we worked on some concept designs, we worked on some other stuff, and we went out yesterday to a list with a list of bidders, and we're asking them to come in on the 24th of August, meet with us, we'll provide all the plans we've got and everything else, and then we're going to go say, you come back with us, design build thing, come back with us and tell us what it would cost us to get this done. When that's done, we'll come back to the board and present to the board what this is. However, it won't be in isolation because we've got to know what these other projects are. Okay, that's why we're pushing. Okay, we are in fact pushing. All right. Yes.
3 months ago, this would have flown through the board. I mean, like poop through a goose. But guess what? What about the Swimming Racket Club?
Yeah.
What about the county money, the state money?
Right.
And,
Well,
yeah.
but I want to make it clear that all we're going out for bids, there's no intention to let a bid. And we're putting this on our scope and invitation letter. There's no obligation for us to sign a contract. You're doing this, and we're doing it together to see where we're going.
Yeah, and let me just put again in perspective relative to the budget, the 5-year budget as it exists. Now, unlike the Swimming Racket Club, you won't find this in here. Because our logic was, at the time, well, of course, we were thinking of an awning for the yacht club. Oh, yeah, by the way, about a $500,000 awning, we realized. And we thought about 1.2 for the country club, which was kind of high on everybody's list, still is on some. And we had the Swimming Racket Club, and we were finishing up the community. And we said, you know what? You know, how many major projects can you do in 5 years? And so we kind of pushed the beach club out until the 6th year.
The 6th year.
Knowing that it wasn't going to fall down. I mean, knowing that it wasn't going to fall down. But you know,
We pushed the what out?
the beach club, it's not in the budget.
Oh, yeah.
No, we
right.
actually, because we realized in the
Yeah.
5-year period it was a little bit much, we threw that into the next year, which was the 6th year.
Now,
the first year of the next 5-year plan.
But on the other hand, we knew that those
We knew there were some issues.
we knew the issues.
Yeah.
The issues we knew 2 years ago when we did our walk around and Kerry said, you know, we ought to have it. You know. I mean, so what I'm all pointing out is that, you know, I think the 10-year planning committee looked at it and says, look, this is low-hanging fruit. It's not the most expensive item, and it's certainly something that's going to make a lot of people that use it very happy, and it's going to make a major improvement in this thing. And
Very
you know,
high
and they recommended it. So it went from not in the 5-year to now can it be accommodated? Sure, but other things are going to have to be moved.
All right, and again, look at this thing, this circle here says August 10th, it's a deadline, we met it, and we're pressing forward, okay? Now, on the right-hand side, the Beach Club parking lot. The Beach Club parking lot, Ted covered it the other day, but we're looking at that separately. We're going to come up with, because there's so many options, and there's so many implications to do with stormwater management and all kinds of stuff. We can talk about it forever, but we're going to come up with a scope of work from engineers on options, and then we're going to price those out too. Did I express that correctly, Tom? Okay, and come back with what it's going to cost us. And again, that goes into the pocket for the board that, you know, for management to recommend that to us and the board to consider, okay? Okay, now the number 4 there is the bridges. $880,000 are in this year's budget, right? 880?
It's a very tentative figure, yes.
That's it, but it's in
800
there.
It
plus
was 800 for the bridges, 80 for
10% engineering
All right,
estimate.
but it's in here,
Right,
okay?
880.
Now, we've got these bridge studies that say that we must do certain things within 2 years. Either make the repairs for a 10-year fix or build new bridges for 50 years. And the 50-year bridges are 300 plus or minus just for the work plus other peripheral things. So we're still thinking maybe 400 per bridge. We're thinking that because we have the bids in. And we're thinking 150 or so for the repairs for each bridge, round numbers. But we believe that there's only one decision to make: replace the bridges.
Long-term fix rather than
Long-term
short-term fix.
fix.
Well, that's
No
what the
short-term
committee
fix.
thinks.
That's what the
Yeah,
committee
right,
thinks.
right.
And we'll present that to you.
But I think one of the things I point out that, I mean, that is a clear decision point. You look at, there were 2 recommendations, okay, we either have to do the fix, and we got a projected lifetime for that and projected cost for that. We know that they said that the overall costs, if you carry it out far enough, are gonna be higher, or this, but the initial cost will be lower, or the replacement option.
All right, well, Public
Now-
Works,
Now, how far do you want to go on assuming there's the replacement option without asking the board to consider it?
we're going to get the list, we're going to get the bidders, and we're going to find out the real prices. As soon as we get hard data, we're going to come back to the board and present it
Are you going to go get real prices on both?
on everything.
The answer
On
is yes.
either?
On
both?
fix or
On both.
just
Bill,
replace?
on
Fix and
both.
replace.
On both.
On
On both, okay.
Replace
That's my
and
question.
repair.
That's all I wanted to know, was both. The answer's both.
The answer is both, that's what I want to know.
Your 880 number was intended to replace those bridges.
Yes.
Right.
So when you approved the budget, it was, you were going to do that. And
Is this not a
That's a
safe,
stretch, but I didn't vote on the budget, so I'm not gonna argue.
Yeah,
is this not a safety issue too?
it is if we don't do
is.
something in 2
You're right.
years.
I don't see it as a safety issue as much as the state could come in 2 years and fix it. And
We got to
bill
do
it.
something.
But the state would only fix it because of a safety issue.
Yeah, but they.
We got to do something.
We gotta
Oh,
do
yeah, there's no,
something.
it
Can't put it
have to
off.
be attended to.
And
My point is,
we
it
have
falls
2
right up there
smoking gun
with
reports,
the,
you know, I mean,
falls
I-
right up there with the pool.
Right, but the money's been
But it's gonna,
budgeted.
yeah.
Now, okay, those are the major projects. There's many other little projects going on within Public Works, okay? But these are the ones we're looking at the task force right now. Now, the next thing is money, okay? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not an official expert, but if the budget says we are to spend $880,000 in fiscal year 2010, and we don't, how do we adjust it? We have to amend the budget, don't we?
I would think.
The capital.
what are you really
Don't
going
forget,
to
we're
do?
going to have a new budget in another 6 months.
Yeah.
I know.
The budget's
And at
gonna
that
be-
time, you can then,
I wouldn't be amending the budget. We
Yeah,
know
you don't
that
know the budget.
it's a question of what year you're gonna spend the money and not whether or not you're
Well,
ever gonna
I,
spend the
it's sort of a
money.
rhetorical question, okay, but there is, someone can say, well, look, you guys have got this $880,000, but you're not gonna spend it, what are you gonna do with it? We've gotta be very careful, and of course, it's in the capital
We
side.
didn't save it, that's for sure.
And we're gonna
Deferred
spend it based upon this overall plan, which we hope to get revised before we start the next budget.
When we're looking at the overall
Right.
plan, when we're looking at 5 years as a group, and we're budgeting 5 years, that's the key thing.
On the
And,
capital side.
that is.
It would be no different than what we did with the club early on. We deferred some expenses to the following year, if you remember right. We were initially gonna do certain things to the club, and we didn't because we talked about putting in the,
Yeah.
and we said, okay, we're gonna take the budget, that money that we had for last year, and we moved it forward. So we would do the same thing here. We would just take the money.
I just wanted to make sure we address it, and we're not gonna say, well, look, we didn't amend the budget, and now, I just wanna make sure we all understand where we are here.
In the interest of, yeah,
Fluid.
in the interest of fact, borrowing from ourselves during this period. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we are now drawing down temporarily on some of the reserve funds. Those reserve funds will then be restored in the latter part of the 5-year period. So it's not as though the money's been collected, we have it to pay for, we don't even have enough to pay for the
No,
bridges.
but it's in the
But it's
budget.
within the 5-year.
Yeah, it was put in the
Yeah.
budget, and if you don't
Exactly.
spend it this year, the bridges didn't go away. We're gonna have to take that at 800,000 and put it in next year.
Well, we'll borrow from
Or whatever
ourselves
the
to do
figures come in.
We'll borrow from ourselves to do the things that need to be done and then repay it with the collections later.
Yeah,
I'm
Pete,
aware.
Pete and I, you've already seen Pete, so not mine, I've just shared it with Pete, but we both independently looked at the same thing. We did it in different ways, but came to pretty much the same conclusion. And I believe we have to do that and keep that right in the front of our minds. One of the things that I did that Pete did, Pete based it on what we did last year in the budgeting. I based it on current events and the fact that we lost $500,000 in roads at the same time, and that the swim and racket club was moved up. And as you take, there's no hard conclusions, but if you look at this, you get a good sense that it's doable. Yes, Mark.
This is great. This is just a little bit off what we're talking about. It's important. Okay, we're all trying to bring the new board members up to speed.
Yeah.
When is the next quarterly report?
Our next regular meeting probably in September.
Your manager report at the annual meeting was wonderful, very positive and upbeat. Ted's was very realistic and factual. I think we need to have the two of them together in a couple of paragraphs, and we need, the one thing that was not mentioned at the annual meeting, or I never heard it mentioned, was the $500,000 we lost in the state and county fund. If I'm a member and somebody has cut me $500,000, I wouldn't keep shuffling that under the carpet. I would put it right up on the front page.
Well, first it was 450, but on top of
Well,
that.
whatever it is,
Yeah, we
450.
announced-
That's what I
we
have
announced
written.
it-
He said,
We
yeah.
announced it in May and we announced it in June.
You announced it where?
In the manager's report.
I have not seen it in the Ocean Pines quarterly report ever. And I don't live here. I'm one of the
The
majority.
quarterly thing we put out.
The
Oh, I
thing we
know, I
put
thought it
out,
was.
I think I even mentioned it
I think you did, Dave.
in my report.
I think
Yeah,
Dave
yeah,
Stevens
yeah,
did
that's
it.
all.
Was it in the quarterly
Yeah.
report?
Yeah,
Was it good?
not even out there.
Well,
Yeah.
It's not a secret.
Yeah.
Well, some of these things we're talking about doing may not. I would love to be able to say when somebody goes, "A new bathroom at the beach club." It was right in the quarterly report.
Yeah.
I don't think that's stuff we should hide. And
Well, that's why we're having this meeting right now,
Okay.
and it's on tape.
It-
We've got all the spies from the local people writing down, and I think they will provide us good information,
And I'm
good-
sure-
right?
You are mailing your
Pass it on.
newspaper out to all the members of Ocean Pines, including the vast majority that doesn't live here.
Oh, Marty, it's on our list of to-do.
The
Okay.
point I'm making is we have a quarterly report that's mailed to the majority of the membership.
Let's make sure we point out these things clearly in the future so they know what the
That's what I'm talking
issues
about.
are.
And there's,
I'm done, by the way, with this. However, I just want to make you know, there's a lot of things going on. We may have a couple of special meetings you may want to call to make sure that you understand where we're going so we can put it in the budget during the budget process.
Good.
Before you quite leave this, I have sort of a semi-related question, an easy one. We'll have the organizational meeting next week. One of the things that we've done for new directors, we didn't do it last year, did we? but we did it the year before. It's like there were 4 of us, all brand new. Was take a tour of the facilities and so forth. I'm just throwing out, what do you all think is the need for that? Now, Pete has been on the 10-year planning and on the budget, so he's kind of been going around with everybody and has actually seen these things firsthand. There's an option. The way we did it before is we all pile in, go out with Kerry, meet the different department heads, and see this stuff as a group. Another option for either Pete and or Bob or both would be to go out yourselves and allow get the
Well, I
general
certainly
manager
want to take them
tour.
too.
Yeah.
I mean, one way or another, you should do this tour. How do the rest of the board members feel? You feel like we ought to do it in togetherness, or do you think that
I think you're better off doing it individually.
individually?
Therefore, you get
Okay.
to ask your own personal questions one-on-one, and I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, I think most of us have been there, done that. What do you think, Mark? Of course,
I don't remember seeing anything that I hadn't already seen, but
You live here for a long time.
Dave, I think what I hear you suggesting, and it's one of the questions I had, is there a new director orientation program of some sort?
oh yeah, by you're going to get it.
I've already gotten a binder of stuff like that from
You're going
Phyllis
to get
yesterday.
you'll get the legal brief.
Yeah,
during
but
the
a
meeting.
tour of the facilities is part of that. I think what you're asking is,
Yes.
do any current board members want to ride piggyback on that?
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
You know,
I'll
so
go
we
if you
can
want me to
plan.
go, but
But
I
if you
don't
know,
see any need for it.
so I mean, I think it'd be really helpful, Bob, to get out there and see that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so as a new director orientation, it would be very good, and then provide the opportunity for current board members, if they so choose, to join that.
Well, Tom,
Did-
you don't
did
have
you ever
to
get a
do
chance-
anything special, do you?
I don't, well, if
Go to
the-
all the directors are going, I'm gonna go rent a
CCI
van.
course
I'm
over
gonna
in
rent a
Ocean
van.
City
Otherwise,
for
I'm gonna
directors.
get my 2 new
Why don't
directors.
you not rent a van?
That's
We'll
something.
trail along in a car if
Three
if
go try to
anybody
do that.
wants
If somebody
to go.
wants to go.
Set up
You'll
the
try to
time
get them
with
into
these
that.
guys.
Community organization, whatever it is,
CAI?
CAI.
Oh,
yeah.
the board thing? Yeah, I'll check and see when the next one.
There's one coming up at the Capri pretty soon. But that's
What's that one?
The ABC course. for
it's
board
just you're now a board of
directors.
directors. It's so basic, it's almost hard to take. But you know what? I've never gone to one of those things I didn't learn something. And I think you went. I mean, it was worth the morning. Didn't you think?
Yeah, I wasn't there. Remember, I was in hospital.
No.
But you gave me the book, and I have done the other CAA courses. And by the way, we brought in twice in the core. We had meetings in house where we brought in a lecturer to basically run like a seminar type thing.
Board responsibilities,
And-
function.
Yeah, he actually attended our board meeting and then made notes afterwards in closed session to the board about what we should be doing and should have done better. I think that education thing is, it is pretty top level, but you do learn stuff.
I'd be interested.
Okay, let's move along to the third topic. Let me say by preface that we're talking about the Bayside lease and an update on that. If I may, this is a topic to discuss in any detail. We would have to move into some closed session. That's by prior board agreement. There were 2 activities ongoing, and still to a certain extent are, that we agreed to. One was to take a look at the current lease as, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that, a draft of the proposed new long-term lease, which was provided by Leighton Moore, and which the board commented on in detail. I took those comments and still have them, and basically tried to consolidate them on a paragraph by paragraph basis, saying, and point out, in some cases, which individuals made the comments, and just go through them. So we say, okay, here's all what we think about this. And with a mind, now we've also done, Marty's taken a crack at taking those and saying, well, what would it look like in a lease type format? I mean, if it really would. We also had in mind the idea of taking those comments and going to an independent panel who would actually try and structure the lease for us. In other words, from our perspective, what we think it would have to be. Now, by the way, all of this, you know, and we're unanimous in this, nobody's gonna do anything with this thing unless it goes to referendum. We're talking about getting it, whether or not we can get it to a point where we could take it to referendum. That's just the question, and we're trying to get information. So I'm saying that was one activity. And what I've done is, I've asked Tom to make you copies of the latest version of the draft from Leighton Moore.
We've already gotten it.
You have it
We have,
already?
yeah.
Okay, and I have in my briefcase, and I'll hand them to you when we're done, my consolidated comments, which the rest of the board has. I didn't copy all of the individual comments, but I can give them Phyllis to do that. I mean, I just, you know, have it from Marty.
They should also have, I believe, a copy of the existing lease.
You do.
We have that as well.
Okay, good.
Because that's, I don't believe that, I think the last, I want to say that public, never mind.
Yeah, okay.
No, we have copies of the current lease that was renegotiated, or not renegotiated, just re-signed.
Yeah,
Re-signed,
fall.
yeah.
November something.
Okay.
So we have
Good,
both.
good,
We
good.
have both.
Now,
Because I think that's the starting point.
The second thing that we did, the activity that we did was to go out to a independent assessor and to basically ask them to not only assess the value of the property per se, but also to assess the value of the deal. Okay, kind of more complicated.
Very different.
We just this week received drafts of that. Tom has looked through them. I haven't really, and didn't have time just yet the other day. Glanced through them. It's complicated. I suggested to Tom that he make copies of those for the board. I said it's stupid. We have a window of opportunity to go back and ask questions. Okay, and
With who?
To the assessor. In other words, and I think we have to funnel those questions obviously through a single point, but so I've asked Tom to have copies of those made and distributed to the board. And I recommend that we defer any further discussions or comments on this until we read them.
Right.
Look at the consolidated comments. Look at what the assessor says, and say, all right, now what's next?
What's our window of opportunity?
Window of
The time to react.
I think now that we have most of the information, I guess I would say next week. We have one organizational meeting, but I don't know, how long will it take you to read about, I don't know. Pretty, your Phil's going, yeah, it's.
They'll be available after this meeting, and they are confidential.
And they're confidential. Yeah, oh yeah,
How
that's
much
the,
time do we have to get back to the essay? Did he put a date?
I haven't put a date on it.
No. Did he?
Did he
Dave
put a date on it?
Rather than walk that path too far down the road, do you want to convene an executive for about 5 minutes and talk about that? I think you're done with everything else you wanted to do publicly, right?
I'm just curious of the date, that's all.
Yeah, but I think
John.
Bob is suggesting there may be questions that Bob or I might have
Yeah.
that we can't ask in open session about the status of things, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to avoid a detailed discussion when there's X amount of
When you got a lot of
information
dictionaries.
that nobody here has seen.
I think you're right.
You know.
So put it off until after we've all had an opportunity to read it.
How
But my-
quickly
again,
can get back to the
what
assessment?
is-
Let me just say this, the reports are not finalized, they were provided for me as a draft for comment.
Yes,
Okay.
but the question
So
was,
that,
the question was brought up, Tom, that we have an opportunity to go back to the contractor and ask questions.
not open-ended, I think probably a week is a reasonable amount of time.
Well, did he put in his letter how
No, he
much
did not.
time we have?
No.
Okay.
No.
I mean,
But
you
we're
know,
paying him, is that correct?
Yeah.
So he-
Well, no, I mean, there's always a time limit on how much time they give us to
There-
get back, because they gotta get
there
this
is.
order.
Yeah.
He'd rather be 2 weeks than be some changes this week and some changes next week
Right.
and some
Yeah.
changes the week after that.
I think, Tom, why don't you find out? That's a question, and say, look, here's what we want to do. Do you have any problems with that? I think he's already expressed a desire not to have 7 board members asking
shouldn't.
questions individually. As a matter of fact, it wasn't more than a desire. Why not? Built it into my, I won't do this if I have.
These are more questions on how he or she came up with the final numbers, came up with the
There's-
final
it's-
information.
it's-
Not changing
it's a
values per se,
Can't
because
change
that's
our
what we've
opinion.
already
Oh,
made.
no, we're not talking about the opinion.
Okay, that's what.
It's-
okay,
Lord,
it's
no,
just-
no.
Well, I'll tell you
Good-
what, it
good
probably
point.
gets even more fundamental that reading it, and if there are questions that you don't, if there are things about what you read that you don't understand, maybe he needs to modify the report to make
Okay,
it
that's
clear.
what we're referring to then.
What I hear being said, there's a draft report out there, looking for input,
Yeah.
comments on the draft report before it's being finalized. Ordinarily, you'd say a week or 10 days for something like that.
Sure.
And
Exactly.
And I believe that more sets of eyes on this thing is, I would ask that the board keep their own sets of eyes on it. I know we will have our different people that we like to look at things, but I think these, we want to hold these confidential. I mean, yeah, well, I won't say anymore. Anybody disagree? Have a problem?
No.
Okay. So why don't you check on that and buy us as much time as reasonable. But you think a week is a reasonable time, John? I mean, for
I haven't seen the report yet.
yeah.
I mean, it's tough for me. Sometimes we put in our agreement with them saying that we'll get back to them within so many days.
Yeah.
I was asking if we had a timeline. If we don't have a
Yeah.
timeline, I think 3 weeks, we ought to ask for 3 weeks and get it done quicker.
Yeah. I
I
think.
don't care. I mean, I just wanted something to work against.
See what we can. I mean, he's put a lot into this. I mean, just by a glance, and I'm easily impressed anyway. So I don't know. but and I think given that, he should have the expectation that we would have questions.
I don't think there's a problem here.
Yeah.
How long have we had it?
A day, 2 days.
Not even 24 hours.
so how about the end of next
Yeah.
week?
Oh, no, I think Bill asked how long, when did we get it?
No, I'm saying, how about
Yeah.
any consolidating comments and questions, but go back to them by
What
the
is
end of
the
next
rush?
week?
And if you
What
think
is the
that's not
rush,
enough
Pete?
time, just let us know, so we'll extend it.
Pete, what is the rush?
Why delay? Let's get on with it.
I
the end of next week, we can't
I
do the
think-
document?
I think, what we wanted
Got
to
other
do
things
is
on my
get all of the information that we need. Now, again, look at the consolidated comments and see where we haven't taken the step that we said we were going to do, which was to get an independent panel to take a look at the contract itself. Because they are kind of, you can look at them independently, but at a certain point, they're related, because it's what specifically goes into that. And we already know, I mean, if you look at the consolidated comments, you can see a certain amount of uniform agreement among board members who disagree on other aspects of it. And so one of the questions will be, well, can we get it to look like what we want it to look like? So that's one thing, but it's also somewhat related to the value. So
We get the appraisal,
yeah,
and then we hire a 3-person panel of experts.
No.
hire in the the way we hired the 10-year task force.
Well, if it's volunteers, okay, that's another.
That's what I'm
all for
looking.
volunteers.
That's what I'm looking for.
As long as they're capable.
Yeah, Marty.
As you know, I've spent some time
Reasonable
having
the best.
Yeah.
my staff redraft based on some stuff that we plagiarized at
At the other stuff. That's
and
exactly.
it was all very acceptable to Joe Moore. If I had 1 or 2 other people or directors that wanted to join in on this, by the time we have our comments ready to go back, we could have a rough cut.
On our version of a contract.
On one that I think the only changes to are really the things that we've talked about in the
Rob, okay, I think we need to look at this, whatever this appraisal says.
Yeah, the
Has it got
problem.
numbers on it?
Kinda
Has it got
dancing
numbers
around
on it?
this. Yeah, we're dancing around.
No,
this. I think we're done with this.
I know. The problem I have with that is that, we're asking the same people to work on it that already have expressed pretty strong views
Pretty
on
strong
it.
views,
And-
right.
And that's why
Well, John and I
I'm trying
have
to-
exactly opposite views. Do you have an hour next week or later this week?
See, I'm of the opinion that board members should not be drafting this, our offer, because we have to vote on it. Okay?
Well-
And therefore, if I sign up for it and I draft it, it's tough for me to vote no
Yeah.
on something I personally do
And
not
see,
believe
and
in.
I've seen what
I-
Marty's
you know-
done, and I know where he's going.
We
with
used,
it,
we used
but-
to hire architects to design buildings too. But I can say gladly in the 2 years I've been here, we've changed that and it worked
I don't have,
pretty
I
good.
understand that, that's why we can go out for volunteers and they can put it together, and then we can look at it and approve it or disapprove it.
Yeah, well, I think giving it to somebody else, because we
Bill, you're
all
pretty
have
much in
opinions.
opposition. Will you help me with it?
Well, here's how I see this whole thing. First of all, I'm gonna check, and we enter into a new board year. What is the status of all outstanding motions? Do they remain in effect, or do they die? Okay? Or can they be reconsidered? And once we get this appraisal report and we talk about it again, we may have a different opinion of whether we should waste our time or
You're absolutely right.
whatever, if we feel it's not a waste of time, then we continue, but if we feel it's a waste of time, then we can revote, but I don't even,
Well,
Dave, I think what Bill is referring to, I believe, is a vote that was 4-3, taken back at the tennis facility a couple months ago, to terminate the discussion on the lease altogether, right?
Right.
4-3, one vote would have changed that.
That's right.
We wouldn't be talking about it today.
Well, I want to look at the
Yeah.
report, and we come back and discuss it, and then we need to decide where we're gonna go.
well, and answer your question, that motion still stands. Old motions
Yes, of
never
course it
die.
does.
They just fade away.
But a new motion could be made.
A motion to rescind or a motion to reconsider.
Exactly.
Well, I think
And
we
that's
got-
your point.
To answer Marty's
No.
question, we had a course of action where we were gonna get an outside panel to draft the offer.
That
And
was-
that's why I think if we're gonna stick to it, we ought to stick to that and not have us as board members get involved. We need to look
You gotta
at what
have
we
a board
have.
member involved.
Yeah.
Can I ask, maybe this is a crazy question, but I've got to ask. We're trying to consider putting a group together to write an offer for a lease that we haven't even decided we're going to lease property yet?
Wait a
I
second.
mean, maybe I'm missing something here. I'm just asking.
There were two issues, okay, that we were able to separate and get different people. One issue was the value. I mean.
And we have that report.
And we
need
have,
to
we
review
have
it.
that report.
Okay.
Second issue was specific terms as offered, some of which some board members thought were unacceptable, and actually some of which almost all board members thought. The question was, however, we have never sat down and said, okay, this would be acceptable, here's what we do want. Never got to that point, what we had is a bunch of individual comments, okay? What I tried to do, and what you will be able to look at this week, is the consolidation of those comments on a paragraph by paragraph basis. You might have some of your own that you feel should be put. That's the contract part of it. That's what it would be.
What was
So we
Marty
have,
Yeah.
You were drafting
I was
Marty-
taking that.
Marty was taking my consolidated,
Comments.
the consolidated comments and trying to come up with an actual contract. What we had proposed to do back then was to get some volunteers who knew contract work and to get them to take the consolidated. Here's what the board thinks. Here's, by the way, our points of disagreement. I mean, as objectively as we can. Here's what we think. Okay, what would the final contract look like that would basically be acceptable, or as close to acceptable as we can get? And we're not even close to that now. I mean,
I'm with you, though. We got the appraisal in order to provide us more information, I would think, for us to make a better decision
to do anything.
to do anything. So it seemed to me, once the appraisal's in, we might want to make a decision to do anything. Then if the decision is to proceed with a lease, we ought to understand if this guy would even accept some of our counter proposals. Why waste our time forming a body, writing something up and say, I mean,
Well,
this is.
Because it doesn't count until it's in writing.
It doesn't
Like
count
Maryland
until
real
it's in
estate
writing.
law.
That's
Well, then,
exactly
then
right.
we can go
We can
forward then.
we can either do this, just all go in the closet and circle around, or we can go ahead and actually do it the professional way and answer his offer.
Well,
Yes.
I think you've got a couple of things.
And there is an acceptable lease. Would you accept $20 trillion? Of course you would. Maybe
$1
we won't
billion.
accept well, somewhere in the middle.
The thing is that we had an offer put out here about a little over a year ago. We looked at that draft, we didn't like it. Another draft came in this year. We looked at that draft, we had a meeting, as Pete referred to, back in April, I think.
The second
The
offer
vote-
wasn't as good as the first.
The vote was, should we continue working on the offer? In the end, the vote was 4-3. Okay, as a result, there was two things. One, we felt that there was a need at least to know what the hell that their property was worth.
And a survey,
And two, in a survey, because it was,
which we have.
a meets and bounds survey to get the bottom line on that. And some type of assessment, whether it be from a real estate lawyer or from an assessor, determine out what is the true value of that deal to Sequence. Because there's
Not
many
to them,
reasons
to
why.
us.
No, the true value to him, so we could put a value on it for ourselves. And then he asked for, Dave asked for our comments on the draft. We all gave him the comments on the draft. He put it all together, Bob. And now there's one document that basically has most of what we said. And there was supposed to be a committee put together to draft an offer. Doesn't mean that maybe the three of us who voted against it are still for this at all. Okay, but that is where we are, and today we're going down this road. We're not sure it's a good deal, haven't seen anything new.
And then when we got to the point, we got all the information we had, we put the best thing out that we could. It's gonna come back to the board, and we're all gonna somebody's gonna make a motion, and I move that we move this question to referendum. And we're all gonna say yay or nay, and, I mean, but we'll
That might
be
be a
doing
4-3
it.
vote.
We'll be doing it on all, and that might be a 4-3 vote. But that'll be the only question. Say, we have sufficient information, do we believe that we should put it out?
Well, we're first gonna get him to agree to the deal before we put
Absolutely.
it out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Subject to the referendum.
Yeah, subject to the referendum, absolutely. You know, we go back with the best
Okay.
thing we said, and that could include,
Sitting on the
changing
bench
dollar
and
amounts,
see the-
changing anything. It could, it could.
Dave, why wouldn't there be a special meeting perhaps next week, if that's convenient, timely enough, on this single subject? I mean, if the lockage storage fees were important enough for a special meeting, shouldn't there be a special meeting for this, after people get?
One would think.
Well, one would think, but I think that's.
I don't know, it's a thought.
I think
But
that's
seriously.
I think that's what I suggested, to begin with, is
300
that
times 18.
we have a special meeting. I'm trying to look at it. Let's before I call it, I would like Les to be back. When's he coming in? I'll check.
2 more
Well, it'll
weeks.
be after
Yeah,
the organization
2 more
meeting. I
weeks.
think he gets back on the
3
18th.
weeks.
I don't know why we'd have a meeting.
What day, do you know what day he returns?
It's on the calendar.
I think it's the
17th.
17th or 18th.
Night of the
Okay.
17th.
Yeah, right.
It'd be
on.
nice to have.
It's already, what is it, 11th today?
Yes,
So,
So we're talking about 2 weeks from now.
well, 17th or
no,
18th.
17th.
Yeah, but we won't want it the 17th or 18th.
No, you're right.
You'd
No,
probably
you're
like
right.
to let him read the report.
Uh,
I think he gets back.
Don't you have
late
a
on the 2nd.
You have the organizational meeting on the
The 19th.
19th at
Wednesday.
9 o'clock. You could go into a closed if he had time to review the report.
Why don't we find out first from Tom, okay, tell him what we're doing, this is the assessor, and say, look, we want questions. Now, actually, we can do the questions right away, and funnel them in through me and Tom, and so we get feedback from this guy. I mean, there are gonna be, I know there's a number of things I don't understand. So then we'll set the organizational meeting up and give Les a few days to recover from jet lag. Set the special meeting up. I don't think it's so important to do it the same day as the organization. As a matter of fact, it's not
I
even a
agree.
good idea.
It's not a good idea.
It's
It's not a good idea.
I mean, this is a subject, I mean, hopefully we'll have all the information together and we'll be able to put it to bed. One part of that decision will be what to do about the contract per se. Now you, by the way, will have the consolidated accounting, you'll have the contract, both of you will. You can look at it, see where we stand. Marty, in the meantime, I printed, but I didn't share, because you hadn't finished.
It's not finished.
It wasn't
It's
finished.
close to finish now, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a big investment of the board's time.
I knew it wasn't really.
Ginger board's getting tired.
I knew it really
of the
wasn't.
Computer screen, but
I was hoping it really wasn't finished. Either that or you were being real clever. Having Dan Stikursky's signature block at the end of it, I didn't know whether or not you were at the end.
it's getting our
Yeah.
neck in the wind.
See if we can get away with that one. Okay, let's close this meeting. I think we're.
Who's going to move to close the meeting now that Ray's not here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Closed it.
One of the new guys got to move.
Consent. I'm not going there.
Without objection.
Without objection, the meeting's closed.
Amen. Congratulations again, I think.
Here to scream with.
Bob the son. Bob the son. I mean, I know you're not at fault.
By the way, there's a really good
I had
article in the
something.
Progress here.
Oh yeah, that was. Have you by Mary Ellen?